Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you. My name is Mark Drax. I'm speaking to you on behalf of SASH, the Society for the Advancement of Sexual Health. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to introduce to you today Ian Kerner. I'm going to read off my other screen here because I've been looking at his website and there's a whole bunch of fun stuff there. But one of the things that really tickles me is Esther Perel describes him as one of the most recognizable voices in clinical sex therapy. I think that kind of speaks volumes. He's published books. Ian, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Mark. Great to see you.
Such a pleasure. You are going to be very kindly talking at our Summer Institute on the 23rd of July, and hence the purpose of this little teaser, so people that might be interested to listen to the full thing in July can get some idea of what to expect. And that's the purpose of this very relaxed little chat today. So, and I've got 4 questions on my left screen over here. I'm just going to read through those and hand over to you. Does that sound good for you?
Sounds great, Mark. I'm glad it's 4, not 10, and it's a conversation and not an interrogation.
No, absolutely not. We leave interrogation about several decades ago. Okay. Ian, question 1. Tell us about your presentation, tell us the title, and tell us if it relates to any or more of your amazing books.
So I'm going to be doing a presentation that's based off of a new book that was just published this month. It's called So Tell Me About the Last Time You Had Sex. And although it's written for the general public, it's really based off of 20 years of doing sex therapy and really the last 10 years of teaching. And that question, so tell me about the last time you had sex, is a question that I ask all of my new patients, couples, individuals, when I'm seeing them for sex therapy. Once I've learned a little bit about the issue that they're grappling with, it could be a desire issue, a desire discrepancy, it could be a sexual function issue in some way. I'll ask them to tell me about the last time they had sex, because I believe that every sexual event tells a story, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there's a sequence of interactions that are physical, psychological, emotional, and all of that constitutes what I call the sex script. And over the years, as part of my methodology, I've really refined what I call a sex script analysis, where I'm really helping couples to rewrite their sex scripts away from the problem and really towards a solution. So away from pain and towards pleasure. And I think it's going to be a good talk because, these days, at least with COVID especially, couples and patients are coming in with such an intensity of issues, so much intensity around the issues. And this is a great methodology for conducting a first session, really getting moving and really giving a couple some real hope and really also helping to guide the clinical process.
In the intensity you talk about, I'm going to take a stab in the dark guess here and say, would you say that's because people have been stuck in their home for the last year, living on top of one another and maybe trying to figure out what to do? Maybe sometimes it's worked, maybe sometimes it hasn't, but is that where the intensity comes from?
Yes, Mark. So it's so interesting when couples come in and describe their problems, as therapists, we can sometimes almost be feel a little destabilized because one issue can be so multiply determined by so many factors. So yes, there's absolutely a relational factor, being on top of each other, maybe an intensity and a predictability that's coming out of COVID. So yes, there's a lot of relational intensity, but there could also be biological factors, right? During COVID, people are, they're not eating their best. They're not exercising at most. They're resorting to maladaptive coping mechanisms, drinking, smoking, drugs, pharmaceuticals that come with side effects. There are psychological things that are happening just for us individually during COVID. Sometimes we're not changing out of our pajamas. Our sexual self-esteem is not at its highest. So there's kind of, when you say, like, when we're talking about this intensification, I think it's, multiple factors. And I think it really points to both the beauty and the complexity of working with patients around sexuality, that there is so much to consider.
And that's enlightening. I have to smile when you imagine a whole bunch of millions of people out there not changing out of their pajamas. I don't think I've worn pajamas since my mother last stopped forcing me to when I was about 15. I'm
Yeah,
53
all right.
today.
Well, someone out
Revolting.
there has a really tattered pair of sweatpants and is still hoping to have sex and isn't being seen at their sexiest.
Oh dear. I think we better pause there because this conversation could go a whole nother direction. Ian, why do you think this topic is so important to sexual health?
Well, again, because I think that sex is, determined by so many different factors, and I think that I'm going to present a methodology which really allows a therapist to feel grounded and to really get a clear view of what's happening. I think in talking about couple sex scripts, I'm going to also really highlight three areas. I'm going to highlight desire and just launching a sex script and how couples often are in different desire frameworks that lead to desire discrepancies. And it's very easy sometimes to feel like, oh, one partner is high desire and the other partner is low desire. And in fact, I think both partners probably feel desire, but in different ways. So we're going to talk about creating a shared desire framework. I'm also going to talk about how sex scripts need to be more than just sequences of familiar behaviors, that we really need to inject erotic and psychological life into our sex scripts, mind-based arousal. So I'm really also going to talk about ways in which I help couples to kind of inflate their sex scripts with newness and arousal. And then the other thing I'm going to talk about is some of the latest science around sexuality that really shows some differences, especially between men and women, and how the brain functions during sex, and particularly how sex is about turning on, Mark. But at a certain point in a sex script, it's also about turning off and kind of going into what I would call more of a mutual flow state. So I'm sort of going to also highlight the different aspects of sex scripts and some of the main themes that have emerged over the course of my work of really helping thousands of couples to kind of rewrite their sex scripts.
And it's very lovely listening to you. It's lovely listening to someone being so open about this stuff. I think for so many years, as I said, I'm 53 and I've spent many, many years in very dysfunctional relationships, very much seeking for my needs to be met and not really, sadly, paying a great deal of attention to my partners. And that means I've hurt ladies in the past, not physically in that way, but just hurt by not paying attention to their true needs. And I said, it's really lovely to hear someone getting up, standing up and saying sex can be fun. And this is actually how you do it. And here are some much more interesting than good old missionary position ways and ideas to liven up sex and make it the beautiful thing that I think it is and really is. Unfortunately, I think religion has a lot to do. And my Queen Victoria didn't exactly help my country to enjoy sex. So there's a lot of catching up to do. It's good to hear someone talking so openly about it.
Well, thank you, Mark. I am very open because my path to becoming a sex therapist really came out of my own sexual dysfunction as a younger man, and really kind of accepting what was sort of the conventional ideas around what sex should look like, and really feeling a lot of internalized pressure and really kind of banging my head against the wall trying to make one version of a sex script work. And ultimately I kind of was fortunate enough to be able to deconstruct that sex script and sort of reconstruct it in new ways. And it really led me to being able to be present and being able to be connected and provide the pleasure that was in my head and translate it, through my body. So I think it's important in this work. I think so many of us that work in the field of sexuality began with asking questions about our own sexuality and our own sex lives. So I appreciate the openness.
Well, I appreciate your openness and your honesty, because I think that I know you'll have heard this expression. It's hard to lead a client along a path which we have not walked ourselves. So putting our money where our mouth is an important part of our work. Ian, what would you, if you had to try and grab a few points, what are some of the key things you would like people to take away from this presentation?
Yeah. to be able to have a methodology in the room that really allows you to sort of look at sort of a couple's sex life in action, or a person's sex life in action, and to see what gets revealed through those actions, to have the ability to look at something at a big picture and to create a kind of a pretty good, accurate formulation, to have a methodology that can guide creating a treatment plan and co-constructing a treatment plan with a patient or a couple. I'm very co-constructive around homework assignments, and I think to take away some of the key themes that I've discovered over the years in terms of working, honoring sexuality really in my practice. It continues to be an office where people can really bring their sexual selves and honor those selves in ways in which they're often exiled in other parts of life.
I think this is one of those topics which might even benefit, certainly in the early stages, in terms of you presenting about this, but being online too, because people can sit. I guess there are some topics where people might feel a little more comfortable sitting alone and where they can't be judged, or et cetera, and listening to someone talk as openly as you, and maybe being inspired to think, actually, this is a safe thing to do, and to not worry about maybe then going more openly, going to more presentations, et cetera. And of course, coming to our conference in October and listening to other themes about healthy sexuality. But maybe this is a good intro to sit online, sit in the comfort of their own homes and listen to you being so descriptive and helpful. So thank you for that.
Well, absolutely. A lot of privacy and confidentiality. You can be in your pajamas or your tattered sweats, but I do hope people will chime in and ask some questions and join the chat so that we are having a kind of interconnected, subjective experience.
Well, I sit on the conference committee and among other, and the marketing committee for SASH, and I can tell you we've already had plenty of people sign up. So I'm hoping you'll get a good audience.
Okay.
And it's been fascinating listening to you talking about your presentation. Before we sign off on this little teaser, here's an opportunity for you to tell people watching more about you. Where might they see you next, and what might be on the horizon for you?
Well, I'm currently, I just published this book. So tell me about the last time you had sex. I'm going to be making that, a topic of conversations both for the general public and clinically. So if you go to my website, iankerner.com, there's a number of virtual book events that are happening, and interesting conversations. I think I'm gonna have about 90 minutes at SASH, and it's going to be a very interesting dialogue with a couple of my colleagues. So there are certainly ways to also find me and get a little more of me if you're not sick of me by the end of the conference.
That's very, very, very charming of you. I doubt very much they'll be sick of you. I think you'll leave them wanting a lot more. Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming, for meeting with me. I know you're a very busy fellow. I look forward to seeing you on the 23rd. And maybe, I don't know, I may be asking a dumb question. Will you be making it to our conference, assuming we hold it live in Seattle this year?
When is that happening again, Mark?
Right in the middle of October.
Yeah,
and at the moment, we're kind of aiming for it being live again.
Yeah, I would love to. I've been invited to a couple of live events, and I'm crossing my fingers and hoping they happen. Not just that planes are flying, but that my kids are cooperative and I could actually leave the house and get on a plane, But if the stars align, yes, and my kids are nice, it'll happen.
Fantastic. Fingers crossed for that. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Keep yourself happy, safe, and well out there. And thank you so much for agreeing to help us on the 23rd of July. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Mark. Same here.
Take care. Keep well.